Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and today is January 23rd, 2020. This is the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Tanu Javeri from IBM. We're talking a little bit about linking and internal linking and on large websites and a lot of those particular issues. So welcome, Tanu. Why don't you give me a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing SEO and so forth.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for having me. Um, my SEO journey started by a complete accident. I was actually globetrotting. I was living substantially out of three different continents and three different cities. One particular year, about uh, you know 20 years ago or 17 years ago, and found myself into online content writing, and that's kind of my exposure to SEO came in, where the first time somebody actually asked me what a keyword was and if I understood what that was, and that started my SEO journey back then. And one thing led to the other, and I am here now today working with IBM as their global SEO resource. In between, I have been part of a little bit of a paid search. I dabbled a little bit into that. And I also did digital analytics. I would say digital analytics helped me frame a good foundation to my organic skill sets, because that allowed me to think beyond just the SEO skills and techniques, but actually leveraging data into any work that I did from an organic perspective, and how it had implications overall in the organization and the way the data was captured.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about large websites. When I think about large websites, I think primarily about, websites that are, say, 5,000 pages, 10,000 pages or larger. But internal linking on large websites can actually be fairly difficult. What kind of strategy do you use when thinking about why where to link and so forth?
I think internal link building is actually one of the most rather the least, or the least amount of tapped strategy that we as SEO folks use. We tend to so much gravitate towards the external link building. As a matter of fact, if whenever we say the term link building, our first thought is external link building, but that comes with its own consequences of possible bad links, penalties, and challenges that it could drive. Whereas if you have a website that is 100 or 100,000 pages wide, you are actually having the ability to link within this content that you've already developed, and it is secure as well. It builds up the domain. It helps the search engines to understand your website much better, because these internal links frame your architecture. It's your navigation. Think of it from a perspective of a map, just like your highways and streetways. And you're telling the search engine, this is my highway, this is my search streetway. And it's kind of taking the acquired user. They're already on your website. Anybody who's landed, irrespective of the medium that they may have chosen or the channel they may have chosen to come to your website, but this is an acquired user, and you're facilitating their customer journey through this funnel, and you can leverage internal link building to do that.
Sure. So kind of how would you decide whether or not, what pages need some links, or where, for example, what are the big questions, that a lot, that I come across, even that I have myself is, okay, well, I know this page needs some links, but
Yeah.
do I put them in the header or the footer or the navigation or the sidebar or in the context, or at the end of the
Right.
article, where on the page?
Right.
Does that make a difference?
Yes, it is. I think, again, just one of the mistakes that we tend to do is the moment we have linked a page through navigation and footer, we think the exercise of building an internal signal to the page has been completed. But if you just step back for a second and actually look at what Google suggested, was it late Q4, of how they looked at keywords in the context of where it was placed. So similarly, you have to think of the link into where it has been placed. Any page that exists today, if you just leave two signals pointing towards it, it's I wouldn't say it's orphan, but it's you're almost treating it like a stepchild. Whereas if you take the journey of the customer and say, what is their customer's intent? Are they trying to learn more about the product? Are they trying to discover what kind of solutions that the company offers? Or are they at a stage of where they're ready to make a purchase or maybe, do a trial for it? So based on that customer intent, you can select your keywords, and those keywords can link to the subsequent page in the funnel to take the users through a meaningful journey. One of the most important tip that I can give is try to keep these link buildings and the keywords and the anchor text involved to be relevant. If you kind of abuse the system and try to just stuff some links in, it may not be very beneficial for the engagement of the user, and you may have actually a negative impact with all the bounces that you might have on the page and impact your overall organic performance.
Yeah, so as we start to think about, conversions or the customer journey, and whether it's relevant for the user, that actually is helpful because of the fact that we know that we're thinking about the user and that's going to be on topic. And so that particular page, if it's relevant for the user, and it's relevant to put that link on that particular page, then we don't have to worry as much about whether or not the page is on topic, or, we're kind of we already know that it's relevant to the user. And so rather, that's a kind of a little different thinking about internal linking, that, okay, we may just, in some cases, I know I need a few internal links, so I may search Google for, site colon IBM.com space keyword and find the pages that Google is showing. But surely that's going to give you some pages, but it's a little bit better, or actually a lot better, to think about the customer journey rather than and putting that link right in front of the user so that they can actually click it, rather than burying it, in the bottom of a page or in the footer or somewhere.
I actually say you're onto something there. Do begin with your site search. Put in the site colon, put in the domain name, and get all the URLs that exist for within your enterprise. But beyond the long list of URLs that you get, and if you're a large enterprise client, there can be times when I have found 200 URLs, or even at one point of time I found about 640 URLs as well.
Sure.
With that term that I wanted to link for. But it becomes very important to how do we gauge where we want to do the internal link building. This is where you might want to see, is this page actually, one, relevant? Two, is it being crawled by my search engines? If that page has no crawlability to it attached, or no kind of a page rank attached to it, what is the value that I'm going to get? Is the customer even aware? Is it getting traffic to begin with, whether internally or externally? Is that page valuable for my user to connect with? Or from that page, would the traffic come back to the current page, or my champion page, if I may call that? So that kind of an analysis has to be done, rather than taking a long list out of, maybe if you can use Screaming Frog, you can use site.colon to find your URLs. But any of those techniques should be your first step of identifying which URLs. But beyond that, you need to do the relevancy factor and some data factors of, Is it relevant? Does it have traffic? Has it been crawled?
Yes, exactly. And obviously, you want to look at, there's a lot of potential analytics data as well that you can include in those decisions as well, as far as what pages they are currently clicking on when they leave, and what pages have they come from, to come to that page, and there's a lot of other data as well as that.
Right. You
And
should even attempt to use your internal search data. If the acquired user may have come to the website and maybe taken 2, 3 clicks, but were those internal clicks relevant and useful for the user? If they're going back to the search bar and actually trying to find another page or putting in a query, that query or that customer intent should be looked at, that point of data point. And from there, after that query was made, which page did they click? Which URL did they click? And kind of navigate from that perspective of which user query or which kind of customer intent was the user coming in, and how that funnel looks like. Sometimes we have, a, a, a system where we say, oh, let's have a page A, B, C, D, and we think that's a perfect funnel, but our users may not be using it in that format. They may be going A, B, and an F, and then coming back to D. And we would be like, why would they go to the page F? Because it may be relevant to the query, or it may be giving them the answer that they were looking for. So those kind of connections can be made by that data analytics.
yes, and it's also about the content on the page as well. I mean, it's also about starting to think about other types of content that we can add, not just text, and that includes video and so in video and images and so forth, and so video and embedding videos can be a really helpful part of that customer journey. They can certainly videos that people can find something on, say, YouTube, for example, and then see and click through to the website, but they can also be on the website and then actually can get information by viewing a video.
It is true. You should certainly leverage your video content, your demo content, your communities, product catalogs, any form of sharing materials. So, if the kind of digitized economy that we live through today, we have video content both shared within the domain and in YouTube. So you could have a shorter version of a video playing into any of the social media, from YouTube to Facebook to LinkedIn, and have the user come and see the entirety of that video. A lot of these tactics are being utilized when we are talking about webinars. And within the page itself, when you embed that webinar, you can then take them to your Learn Hub kind of environment and say, this is where you can see the entirety of your video. So you could have a teaser on your discover page and then take the user further down to the kind of video. If they want to learn more about your product, or if they want to see more about your demo, that could go into the demo section, and then having the user the capability to navigate seamlessly from a learn or a demo or a community section back to maybe a trial and buy, so that they know that if they're interested in taking this journey more in more commercial manner, they have a route.
Sure. Quick question about video. Do you prefer to, or do you think it matters, one way or the other, to embed a YouTube video, or to host a video yourself, or to use something other than YouTube? Is that, I know that it's a debate over and over again with a lot of people.
Oh yeah, depending upon the SEO community member that you may speak to, you may have very strong opinions that you may hear about this subject. Folks have argued that the video should be present within YouTube and then use YouTube as an embedded content onto your domain page, whereas folks have debated that no, there should be a third party media, or a DAM kind of a format that is onto your domain and you should not use YouTube. I have seen clients and I've dealt with both within IBM and outside IBM with clients who've had video content within domain being displaced by both the third party as well as YouTube embedded. And that did not impact the performance as long as the video was relevant and it made sense to the content and the user journey. The third party or YouTube embedded videos didn't make a difference. But when we talk about YouTube as a channel and that linking back to the page, I would go back to what I was talking about. Maybe you can leverage the teaser concept, or you could have the entire video being present on YouTube and use the description to actually link back to your page, because the page would provide content beyond just the video script that might be utilized. So there is potential to gain traffic that way.
Yes, definitely. And, certainly if they're on the, if it's embedded on the site, you can actually, potentially get additional views, which can help as well. And I've seen that, happen.
One of the things that I do want to plug in here, and this is where I'm putting my data analytics hat, it is sometimes depending upon the company that you're working with, a lot of times they think that they won't be able to track the engagement of the video if you use a YouTube embedded system, or if you use a third party. That's the only way of getting authentic data. But this is where work with your data analyst team, depending upon the digital analytics tool that you're using, maybe Adobe or Google Analytics, you can set up event tracking, which would allow you to see your video that's firing, the name, the title, the play percentages, and all of that, play, pause kind of thing. So work with your data analytics team, the digital analytics team, and you can capture that information irrespective of which platform you use to embed the videos.
That's great. Have one question about languages and so forth, and obviously, for a global brand or a brand that is in multiple countries, do you prefer, or is there do you have a preference specifically about having one language per domain, or or putting everything on the same domain name with different subdirectories or folders?
Yeah, I've seen benefits of both. I've had clients who have actually invested into different domain names across the globe, and they had their own individual presence. And this was more retail, very B2C. They had multiple makeup. It's a makeup giant. Multiple brands and multiple criterias, and they were present globally. So they had an individual concept of domains. I would say that the more I move towards a B2B environment, I have found that folks do prefer to have one singular domain and manage it through the hreflang concept. And I do prefer that way, because that is setting up your domain, and from one domain name and its authority, you can leverage multiple ways. If you set up individual domains in the different countries and geographies that you're present, yes, you can interlink them and certainly leverage that, but then you're kind of creating many spokes out, whereas that leverage from one umbrella domain into languages kind of gets lost out in that scenario. So I prefer one domain leverage hreflangs.
Yeah, so then actually, in certain cases, you have to actually think about the customer journey, and so sending them off to, some other, another website, unless it's specifically for them to go to a different brand or a different product, you have to be very aware of that, and that can run into, issues as well.
Yeah, it's also depending upon the, as I said, like in the retail example that I was talking about, the individual brands were considered as the umbrella brands. Many folks
Yes.
would not even realize that when you walk in and there were two or three different, and I'm not revealing the brand names, but those three brands that you saw on the makeup counter, they were all owned by the same company. So the company took a backstage and the brand took a new scenario or its own independent viewpoint. Whereas in a B2B company, the company brand is the individual, and the rest of the geographies or local elements or products are part of that brand that company offers. So I think that semantics allows us to define, should there be one individual domain or multiple domains?
Yes, exactly. So, so that ultimate question about whether or not, whether or not it should be one domain or one, or separate domains or, separate domain names and so forth, that really depends, and it needs to be tailored to the particular situation at hand.
Correct.
So, thank you very. So, how can we? This is we're coming basically to the end of the podcast. So, how can we get in touch with you? And I know you are active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So, how can we get in touch with you?
Both platforms are available. You can follow me on Twitter with @Tanu Javeri. That's TANUJAVERI. And of course at LinkedIn with Tanu Javeri. Certainly, I look forward to folks who want to speak to me further and or discuss any other SEO or digital analytics questions that they may have.
Okay, thanks for joining me this afternoon, Tanu. This has been the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks again. Thank you. Bye-bye.